Russia is lifting a ban on the delivery of a missile defense system to Iran. Secretary of State John Kerry immediately calling Russia's foreign minister to object to the missile sale. This call came after the White House saying the sale could endanger plans to lift sanctions on Iran as part of the nuclear deal. Congressman Adam Kinzinger just came from a classified House briefing on Iran. He joins. Good evening, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So if now Russia is going to lift the ban on this missile defense system, which is valued, I think, about $800 million to Iran, that means to me that Iran is getting ready in case it gets hit.
Yeah, of course. But I got to tell you something more interesting. In that briefing, Secretary Kerry was asked about this by Representative Mike Turner. And Secretary Kerry's response was, well, you got to kind of understand the Iranian position. They're worried about the Saudi Arabians. They're worried about this, Shia Sunni kind of thing. And oh, by the way, the Russians, they have a really bad economy, and, they really need the sales. And frankly, Israel and Egypt never delivered on their promises. I mean, that's what you had in this briefing. You had Secretary Kerry basically kind of brush off that this was happening. So publicly he said, yeah, well, we objected to it. But to us, I don't think he quite realized the impact of what he was saying. He said, yeah, you got to understand it from their perspective. And that's the whole problem with what we've seen out of this administration.
See, the way that I read this was that Iran sees the deal falling through with the nuclear weapons deal falling through, and that it knows that that Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it very obvious that it's zero tolerance for enrichment. So the minute this deal falls through, that means they're at risk that Israel could act. And the best way to fight against Iraq is if they have a missile defense system. So now they're getting it from Russia so that they have complete protection, at least presumably, from any attack from Israel.
Yeah, it's quite possible. And if you think about it, I mean, why now? Why not a year ago? I mean, Russia has basically slowed this sale down for 5 years. Why not a year ago? Why not in a year? It's because for some reason they're making a very strong statement, and Russia's making a very strong statement too. I mean, we hear about it with them, buzzing and intercepting our aircraft, with obviously the increased violence in eastern Ukraine. They're trying to say they're back on the block, and they have to be reckoned with.
From what you say with Secretary Kerry, this is a go. I mean, that the United States is not going to step in and block this in any way or make any efforts to block it.
Yeah, I didn't get that indication at all. He basically said, look, we object to it, but at the same time, you got to understand the Iranian perspective. It actually shocked me. I thought that was really the headline to come out of the whole thing.
All right. Anything else come out of that briefing?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's ever the optimist. He believes that this...
He being Secretary Kerry.
Being Secretary Kerry. They believe that this is the best deal ever. And, the problem is, we hear about some of the details of it, which can't get into a lot of the details, but the problem is there was no Iranians in there that were talking about how they perceive the deal. I mean, when you have Secretary Kerry and President Obama on the one hand say it's got all these very strict things, and, yeah, they can keep their underground facilities, but it's going to, process cotton candy or something and not actual nuclear weapons, and the Iranians say, and they put out a point-by-point saying, yeah, that's not what we agreed to at all. So the next 3 months are going to be telling, but it's quite obvious that we're on two different pages.
Well, Iran said they will not let us do inspections of their military installations. So that seemed to me, if I were Iranian and wanted to do something sinister, that would be the place I would do it.
Yeah,
if nobody's going to come out and inspect that area.
Yeah, you think moving chemical or moving nuclear infrastructure is going to be that hard? It's absolutely not going to be that hard. Look, the Iranians have cheated before. The Iranians want the nuclear weapon. If anybody thinks they don't want a nuclear weapon, they're crazy. So the question is, how are they going to cheat? How are they going to get through this? And that's what I'm worried about.
Any Democrats seem to be upset or give the Secretary a hard time?
Oh, sure. There were a lot of Democrats that seemed very, very concerned about it. And, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the White House is going to have to put some very heavy lobbying pressure, which is going to be the first time they've really ever engaged with Congress, frankly, since they passed Obamacare. And so, we'll see if they have any political clout left. But there's only a year and a half left of this administration. I'm not sure a lot of Democrats are going to go down that hill.